Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller, or Chicago Iceberg. As we are here in Chicago, I am having so much fun running around on the lakefront, getting into the icy cold, and being with fear, tapping into my anxiety, developing that relationship with fear. And there's a lot more that I can say about that, but I just want to get us going here as we are going live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. There's a few ways that you can engage with me. Of course, I love it when you jump in directly on Zoom. I had a fantastic conversation last week with somebody who joined in. It was wonderful to get to know more about them. And the questions that you ask, those are really the fuel for this live stream. So I love it when you jump in online. If that doesn't work, you can always type your questions into the comment section. So if you're viewing on LinkedIn or on YouTube, go ahead and type your questions into the comment section. And your questions, you can ask anything career related. You don't have to ask about what the topic is. You don't have to ask about emotional intelligence or any of that stuff. That's my expertise. I will tie it back to, I'll probably tie whatever you ask back to emotional intelligence. We'll look at it. We'll look at how the dynamics and relationships work and for you in your career, whether that's interpersonally or with coworkers and colleagues. So any question is on the table. You can go ahead and type that into the comments section, and I will do my best to answer. When I am looking at your question, if I'm starting to talk and you can see that I'm not really answering your question, go ahead and type in and let me know that I'm not quite on track, and I'll do my best to orient towards your needs. So you can type your questions into the comment section, or of course you can always jump in here and we can talk one-to-one. Fair warning, this is being live streamed. So we are a few weeks into 2025, and already it's like, my goodness, there's a lot happening. There's tragedy. I mean, I am really upset. I mean, I was born in Southern California and have gone out there many times to visit friends and family, and know a lot of people who are affected by the devastation there. So, I mean, we're hardly into the new year, and some very upsetting things are already happening. And there's a lot of changes happening in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to continue, like this is going to be a year of change. And I notice the anxiety that I have just thinking about that. Just like, oh my goodness, like what's coming down the road? And what I want to talk about today is how to be with fear, how to use my fear as a guide, how to have the anxieties actually open me up to more aliveness and enjoyment. And for all the cheesiness or whatever, I don't care. I think I've been thinking about that U2 song a lot, A Beautiful Day. Everybody's heard it. It's a gorgeous song. And the song's written about a man who loses everything, his home, his family, it's all gone. And he's like, catches that moment of, oh my God, it's still beautiful outside. Isn't that strange? And that's come up a lot in my thoughts this past week, as there's so many challenges and devastation. And I'm like, wow, there's those moments. And what I'm suggesting is that if I shut myself off to what's happening, if I try to close myself down and retreat from experiencing fear, then I also don't get to experience the aliveness and the beauty of life. And it's a thing that I practice a lot in my coaching. Because when I'm with a client, I feel afraid. I have anxiety. I want to make sure I'm really serving them well. I want to make sure that I'm aware of my concerns. It's not about just, looking good or making, um, being smart and that kind of thing. It's about the exploration. It's about really getting to know somebody where they're at, and it's a creative process. And in a creative process, there's the unknown. We don't know what's happening in some ways. We're creating what's happening. We're creating new behaviors, and that's going to require being present with fear. So when somebody is reaching out to me about their resume or their interview, an interview, what we do is we practice being with the fears that come up in an interview. So I'll ask, what's your least favorite question to get? Okay, what don't you like about that question? A lot of people say they don't like the question, tell me about yourself. It's so open-ended. Like, what am I supposed to say and how long do I talk and all that? Yeah. And it's vulnerable. It's like, how do I talk about myself in a way that's, I'm not being boastful, but I'm, you know, saying the good things about me? Like, how do I do that? Of course, anxiety is going to come up with that. And so it's about being with the discomfort in that question. Because if I try to avoid my own anxiety while I'm answering a question, like, tell me about yourself, I'm just going to try to run through it. I'm going to be like, I do this, and that's it. And then, that doesn't work so well. Or I'm going to over talk, which is what most people do. I just kind of keep talking, and I feel anxiety. And so I fill the space with more words. And then I'm like, is what I'm saying, does this even make any sense? And that's a real thing. So sometimes being with the anxiety means pausing more. Sometimes it means even asking, I've shared this much, would you like to hear more? So that's a great use of anxiety. So often asking a question is a good way to be present with fear, to actually use the fear to help me find out more. But when I'm talking to somebody, like, am I oversharing here? Is this good? Do you want to move on? Or and that kind of thing, that when you can access that space in you where you're with the discomfort, but you're using it to ask intelligent questions and to make meaningful contact with the person you're talking to. That's the game. And so I spend a lot of time choosing to be with that discomfort. There's in most relationships, in work relationships, everybody has a different point of view, and everybody has their own agenda, because they have their tasks that they need to see through. And so it's like we're all kind of on different planets, or I'm thinking about ice right now. So we're all on like little different icebergs, and we're like trying to like work together. And it's like, how do I get to understand where somebody else is at? And that usually means being with my discomfort, because honestly, any worldview other than mine is a little uncomfortable to be with. And so I need to allow myself the discomfort, not just talk over people. That's one thing that people do to avoid their fear, is they talk over people, talk too much, don't really listen. Then another one is people just don't say anything, just keep their mouth shut. And at a certain point, when you're one of those people, you're listening, and then you're like, oh, I should say it, or no, how do I say it, and you start to get in the pattern. You're not even listening anymore. You're just like kind of stuck in your fear. And so by being with fear more, practicing speaking up when you feel afraid, you're developing that a muscle. You're developing the skill to be with and communicate more. So when you see my stuff online about going into ice water, that's one of the key things I'm doing, is I am being present with anxiety, and it turns into joy and aliveness. So I feel that fear. It's like, I don't need icy water. I don't want to go in there. That's freaking cold. It's going to be uncomfortable. And oh my gosh, is my body going to be able to handle it? These questions come up every time I do this, even though I've done this hundreds of times. But each time it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And so I'm practicing being with that anxiety. And as I'm with it, it starts to turn into aliveness, enjoyment, adventure. And a world opens up to me that wasn't there just a few moments before. Just this morning, we were on Telemundo Chicago is interviewing us. So cool. They're awesome, an awesome team. And actually, huge shout out to them because we have our neoprene gloves on and it was very cold this morning. And the camera operators are out there, like they have to like take their gloves off and they're using their hands. I was like, oh no, you guys, like, I mean, they actually in some ways had a worse time of it than we did. So, but anyway, so we're there looking at the ice and it's like, how do we get into the water? And I feel all that anxiety of like, oh no, are we going to get a good shoot here? And I just keep staying with it. And it's like, oh, this spot we can't get in. Okay, I need to go a little further and check it out. But the whole time I'm paying attention to my anxiety because I need to. I need to stay safe. I'm out in dangerous elements, and so I want to be very alert. So if I wasn't in touch with my fear, I might just go running off and I might go do something dumb that actually does get me hurt. So it's kind of counterintuitive because it's like cold and it's like, oh, I should move fast and I should get through this. No. Actually slow down, take some deep breaths, get a lay of the land, and make better decisions. So I'm actually choosing to feel my discomfort so that I can allow in more meaningful data. I can take in more. It's like I'm opening the lens of my camera. I'm opening up the lens of my consciousness. And I take in more. And then I can make better decisions. I can assess things more. But if I was being run by my fear, if that was just the thing driving me, like in a way where I'm trying to get away from it, it's like, oh, stop feeling it. Then it's my focus gets so narrow and I can't make as informed decisions as I want to. So I'm always practicing this going into the ice water, being present with the anxiety, watching my surroundings, paying attention to my body, paying attention to my deepest self. And as I do that, then, and when I can really relax in the water, and usually it's not when I'm, on with a video crew, but I got a little bit this morning of just that a deep sense of relaxation while in the ice water, and then I can tap into bigger fears that I have in life. And one of those fears is talking to people. So I did not, I used to not really know how to talk to people. I could be entertaining, I could tell all kinds of stories, and I could be kind of like a mascot, an entertainer to a crowd, and people liked being around me. It was fun. But I didn't really know how to make meaningful contact. And in a work environment, around planning and that kind of thing, people didn't really take me seriously. And I would speak more out of a sense of just trying to make sure that I was heard. I don't know about what, but I had a hard time staying on topic, and I would, make observations and things that I don't think were really helpful. and weren't so much a part of the conversation. So it was, sometimes I'd be a distraction, but it was all because I was trying to avoid my fear. I was avoiding, I wanted to look like I knew what I was talking about. And that was more important to me than actually knowing what I was talking about or actually finding out stuff. So as I learn to be with the discomfort more and say, I don't know what we're talking about. I understand this piece, but not this piece. Then I start to learn more, which is great because learning and growing is what makes human beings happy. So I start to get happier in groups. I'm enjoying myself as I'm with people more instead of just pretending like I'm enjoying myself. And I start to contribute more because I'm asking questions and other people are like, that's a great question. And I was like, oh, I literally didn't know. I didn't even know that the question would be helpful. And so I'm now being with the things that used to bring me a lot of fear. And I started this by saying that being with people, talking to people, I have, I'm social anxiety or whatever. Like being around people is something that I'm working on, is deepening relationships. It's like if we look at the possibilities of technology and what we create and sending robots and stuff to Mars and all of that, like there's all this outward exploration that we are used to doing. And then in the East and in different spiritual practices, there is that deep inward looking. What I'm talking about is both, but with people, is a deep inward looking of myself with another person. And that's a huge frontier. Each human being sees the world in their own unique way. And there's a lot of unknown there. And so while I'm talking now, it means when I'm talking to a person, like it means that I'm with the discomfort. Because I don't know, humans are unpredictable. There's a lot of ways we're predictable, but there's always a way that we can surprise. And when all the elements are just right, who knows quite what we'll do, and who knows quite who we really are. And so as I'm learning to be with my fear more, and I practice that going into the ice water, I practice meditation. These are just tools for me, really, to help me be with people more. So that in any environment, whether I'm in a one-to-one coaching session or facilitating a group or training a leadership team, or let's go bigger, doing a speaking event, or being on camera. This morning, it was really great because I had two good friends of mine. I had two people very close to me who I feel really warmly towards. And so I know them well. And so when they put the microphone on me, I could see them. They were standing behind the camera to my left. And so I would look over at them, and that gave me a sense of security and belonging that's really important to me. So when I'm feeling afraid because I'm talking to a camera and I'm worried about how everything looks and how everything's going, I've got all these anxieties. And then I was very grateful to be able to have a focus point. And also the person interviewing me, I got to know her a little bit, so I feel warmly towards them, and so I can lean in to that. And then I'm with the fear, though. I don't say goodbye to it. I don't try to go above it while I'm talking to the camera. I'm thinking about, what are the things that I'm afraid to say, that I kind of want to talk about, but I'm afraid to say, but okay, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take this risk and I'm going to open up a little bit. I'll share something personal about myself and I'm going to kind of see how that lands. And I say that and it's like, oh, okay, I think that was good. I think this is I'm going in a good direction here. Wait, let me take another little risk here. And so it's not that I'm confident. I'm all kinds of not confident. Like talk about imposter syndrome. Sure, I have imposter syndrome, and I don't really understand people who don't have imposter syndrome because like there's so many unknowns, there's so many possibilities. It's like, yeah, of course, like why wouldn't I feel that anxiety? But it's what I do with the anxiety. It's what I choose, how I choose to be with anxiousness. Because then, as I lean into it, I get more life. I get more insights. I get more creativity. And I get deeper relationships. So that's the real name of the game here. It's as you see me talk about ice water and go into the lake, that kind of thing. It's fun. It's great. I recommend you do it safely and you build up to where you can do it in cold temperatures. Um, but it's not really about that. Like it's about being present with fear. And ice water just happens to be a very direct way of doing that. Um, Improv classes, public speaking classes, training for a marathon. These are all things where people stretch out of their comfort zone. Yoga class, you know, being a dude doing yoga, that's, there might be some discomfort there. Like, what's this going to be like? Is this, but that's being with that anxiety and leaning into it and doing a new thing. And then life opens up in a new way. So, wow, I've been freaking talking for like 25 minutes straight here. Apparently, I love this topic, and I'm quite. I just came out of the lake, so I've got a whole lot of that energy. I got the Lake Michigan in winter energy, and I want to say for anybody who's joining in, I invite your questions. Any question that you have, I'm happy to talk with you about it. You don't have to stay on the topic of being with anxiety, friending your fear, that kind of thing. But you could ask a question about your relationships at work, your relationship with your team, your relationship with your boss. And I would love to answer any of your questions. You can type them into the comment section, and I'll do my best to communicate to you that way. Or you can always jump in here on Zoom and we can talk one-to-one online. So let me know. And as we're coming up to the half-hour mark here, if I don't see anything come in from you, no questions coming in, then I will give you my blessings and plan to be seeing you next week. I'm here almost every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Central. And as I'm closing up today, I want to give a plug to the Chicago Polar Bear Club. So Chicago Polar Bear Club, they're beautiful. I mean, first of all, it's a great group of people. They host a fantastic event going in at Oak Street Beach. I think that's where we're going in this year. And it's a fundraiser, raising money for Chicago families. It's a beautiful event, really brings the community together. It's a wonderful Chicago tradition. So Chicago Polar Bear Club, check it out. I'll be there. It's going to be a fantastic time. And if going into ice water is something that you're interested in, what a time to try it out. You've got thousands of people there. Everybody got all that energy. You got the safety because there's people on standby to make sure everybody's okay. It's a fantastic way to step into the icy waters of Lake Michigan in a Chicago winter with a lot of support, a lot of people around you, and it's for a great cause. So that's one thing that you can do. Check it out. I would love to see you there. We'll be setting up a team, hopefully. I gotta get on that. Let's go, George. So stay in touch. The Chicago Polar Bear Club is coming up. And for anybody who has interest in working with me, I do one-to-one coaching. I do it on Zoom. I do it in person at our space here. I love meeting with people and helping you identify the ways that where your cutting edges, where your fears are lighting you up and saying, hey, what about looking at this? How can you develop? And working with you to break limiting beliefs that you have so that you are moving towards what you really want in life, that you are creating a magnificent life for yourself. So I do that one-to-one. I also host group coaching. I have several groups there. We do amazing stuff. We got another quarter starting soon in EQ Accelerator. It's the EQ gym. So we got all of us in there doing different assignments, different exercises where we identify the next way that we want to learn and grow. And we start acting in new ways for that. Like one assignment that people have is to brag. Like they'll be like, somebody who's like real like coy and quiet and that's not their normal behavior, and they've been passed up for promotions and stuff at work, and people don't kind of know them, and at some point they'll get the bragging assignment, and then they're like talking about themselves, and then blows their minds and people are like, oh, that's great, that's so cool that you did that, and they start building in a new belief about themselves. They do the new behavior, do that, get practice with it, and the new belief starts to form like, you know what, I'm pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't have to have it all together, but here's all of the cool things I've done. Here's my accomplishments, and I'm fine sharing that actually. And it's, isn't it funny that in my family, it was sort of like I wasn't supposed to do that, and now I do that, and everybody likes it. Oh, cool, okay, this is a different world. I'm in a different environment. Great. And then another assignment that people get, sometimes they'll get the assignment, oh, I love this one, is negative to positive self-talk. But we usually have to do some more foundational work before you get there so you can really catch the negative beliefs as they're happening and reframe them. So another one that people will get is naming their feelings. We talk away our feelings so often in life. It's like I'll talk around what's really going on instead of saying, I felt hurt in that interaction, or I felt afraid that this was going to happen, and so I ended up kind of telling this story that didn't make sense, and so we end up talking around our feelings. So a really powerful thing we often start people with is just naming feelings. Whoa, I felt angry when that happened. I was upset when that happened. And they're just saying that in the groups. They're getting this practice of new behaviors, and as they do that, they then start to have that belief change. That like, actually, my feelings are great. Communicating my feelings is fantastic. Wow, my wife and kids know me better. They understand more of me. Oh my gosh, the emotions that I have. This is a universal language that helps me connect to people in ways I wasn't doing before. Oh my gosh, the world's opening up to me. So that's what we do in the EQ gym, is we all are experimenting with new behaviors, new ways to communicate, and we find that we're so much more resilient than we thought, And this, honestly, I think that stuff is more challenging than going into the ice water. The ice water is you go in, you know what you're getting. In the EQ gym, in EQ Accelerator, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Everybody's saying different things, trying on new behaviors, learning more about themselves and taking that into their world and changing their world and their families and at work and having different relationships with their teams. And that's amazing. That's what we want to do. That's what it's like. We're here on earth to make an impact and to deepen relationships and to have a wonderful experience. And so trying on these new behaviors, it starts with leaning into the fear, leaning into my anxieties, and then doing something new, communicating in a new way to somebody else. And then the whole world starts to open up. There's so many more possibilities. So that's what we do in the one-to-one coaching and in the group coaching that I offer. So check those things out. And then, of course, I'm always loving taking people into the ice water. So if that's something that you want to check out, that's on my website as well. Okay, everybody, many blessings. Be in touch. See you next week.